Hi, I'm Steve Pantilat. I'm a professor of medicine at UCSF and the chief of the Division of Palliative Medicine. I'll be presenting at ASCO in a session focused on hope with a variety of research projects that examine both depression and hope in people with cancer. And I'll be discussing a research project that evaluated people with cancer and whether or not they were depressed and what the patterns were of depression, really thinking about how depression and hope interact for people with cancer. And one important way they interact is to understand that hopelessness is a sign of depression, that even people with very advanced cancer at a stage where any of us would say, gosh, who wouldn't be depressed if they had cancer like that? The reality is that most people with cancer are not depressed, and that depression is a treatable condition regardless. And in my work in palliative care, we try to understand and assess whether people are depressed and to ask them about the things they hope for, to help them achieve that hope and to help improve their mood and help them achieve the things that are most important to them. This is something that, it's not easy to do, but it's not hard, but it is something that you have to practice. It's something that you have to learn. It's, that's what we teach in palliative care, but we try to teach it to all our colleagues about how to have sensitive, but forthright conversations. And patients really want that. If you study after study shows that patients actually want the information. They want to know what's coming up. Sure, they want the news to be good if it can be, but they really value honest communication. Another slide that I have is about the Kubler-Ross stages of grief. Everybody knows these, right? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Her initial study was done by talking with people with cancer in the hospital, all of whom were approaching the end of life. And that's where this model comes from, in the stages of grief. And she actually, although we understand it now as kind of responses to grief that kind of bounce around, she really described it as stages. And I was looking at that and I said, I've taught this for years. And I just thought to myself, where's the hope in all of this? My experience is that people have hope. And it turns out there's a whole chapter on hope in her book on death and dying. And the quote that she has in the book is, and I have it right here, no matter the stage of illness or coping mechanism used, all our patients maintain some form of hope until the last moment. And her model actually has a bar of hope all the way across from diagnosis all the way through death. So that hope is actually a very, very much a universal experience among people with cancer. Even though we think that as you approach the end, of course, you can't have hope. It turns out people still do, just their hope evolves.